This video is brought to you by me, because this channel is far too small to have any sponsors. God, I'm so alone! Well, September of 2023 is coming to an end, and just in time for the end of the month, I've received this month's wonderful care packages from the HorrorPack people. HorrorPack is, of course, the horror movie subscription service. There's a DVD offering and a Blu-ray offering, and whichever one you subscribe to, each month sends you 4 brand new horror movies. Obviously, I get both of them, and I like to unbox them here on the channel and discuss what I have received. I don't know what I've received. You will find out at the same time as I do. If you've been around for a while, you know that's what we do here. While I open these up, let me just point out that in addition to these unboxing videos, I do a review video twice a year, every 6 months, in which I actually review all of the films that come out of the horror packs, because having opened them up right here on camera, I'm not going to have seen these films yet, or at least not most of them. So twice a year I do those review videos, the mass review, where I talk about 6 months worth all at once. I am now past due for one of those 6-month reviews, and that is coming soon. I'm just finishing up watching some of the last month's horror pack offerings. I've been busy on some other things, but that is in progress and coming very soon, so make sure you subscribe and stay tuned for all of that. I should also point out that if you're interested in any of whatever movies do come out of these packages, I'll have purchase links down in the What's It so you can find copies for yourself. You can support some filmmakers, get some wonderful movies for yourself, and support this channel all at the same time. And speaking of supporting this channel, do make sure you subscribe, ring that notification bell, leave me comments, like, share, do all of those YouTube-y things that help me to spread the word and grow this channel. But with all of that prefatory material out of the way, it's time to discuss some horror movies. So let's dig into these offerings for September of 2023 from the fine folks over at HorrorPack. I like to begin these videos with the DVD horror packs, and that be this one right here. So let's dig in and see which DVDs we've got for this September. The first of which is a film entitled Howl from Beyond the Fog. It looks to be a sort of kaiju movie. I'm not familiar with it. Let's read the description on the back and see if my guess is correct. The description says, set in Kyushu during the Meiji era, a blind girl named Takiri and the blind monster from a nearby lake named Nebula fight against a greedy developers who threaten to take over her family's land. Using an all-puppet human cast and a fantastic monster suit, it offers a new aesthetic in the world of kaiju films. Intriguing. So it is, in fact, a kaiju movie, but with an all-puppet human cast. I've never seen anything quite like that. I am certainly interested to see how that works. That certainly could be a really cheesy sort of a thing, or it could be a really awesome sort of a thing. Could go either way, and either way does not necessarily make it a bad film. Cheesy can be good, and awesome can be good, so this one sounds quite intriguing. I notice on the back it says the extra features include a 35-minute making of feature, which for something as unique as a puppet-led kaiju movie, I think I'm going to be pretty interested in the making of as well, so I'm glad there are some bonus features. This one has certainly caught my attention. I'm looking forward to watching this one. Next we have 12-film Flesh Fest, Zombies Unbrained. So this is a collection of 12 zombie movies. The back of it says it's over 16 hours of blood, sweat, and brains. I don't know which films, they actually list all the films. I don't know offhand which ones are in it, but let me just get to reading the description of the collection, and then I'll go through and read out all of the films and their little descriptions as well. It says, prepare for 12 delicious servings of gut-wrenching gore with this collection of frightening zombie films. Loaded with spine-tingling terror and stomach-squirming screams, this 3-DVD set is gushing with gore and so much more. Featuring the masters of horror, Vincent Price, Boris Karloff, and Bela Lugosi, this collection is sure to satisfy all your nightmare needs. Well, if it's got those three gentlemen in it, you can't possibly go wrong, so I'm excited already. Let's see what some of these films are. And each of these films has a very brief little sort of couple of sentence description, so I will read out the titles and those descriptions as I go through the films. The first of which is Carnival of Souls, and the description says, "What is happening to Mary Henry? The answers reside in an old deserted pavilion where an otherworldly carnival is taking place in her honor. It is here that Mary will learn what nightmare awaits within." Then we have Dead Men Walk, and the description says, Dr. Lloyd Clayton attends the funeral of his twin brother Elwyn, a diabolical sorcerer, after murdering him in a desperate act of self-defense. Yet Elwyn isn't ready for the hereafter and comes back to life as a twisted vampire. So that says vampire, the cover says zombie. We'll see which way the film actually leans. They are both undead creatures, but they do have some different properties or characteristics, so we'll see which side of the divide that one ends up being on. We then have Horror of the Zombies, and the description says, a yachtsman and his group are searching for missing women when they come across a fog-enshrouded ship. Aboard the ship are the undead legions of the Knights Templar who are cursed to roam the earth to plague the living. I like the sound of that. I do like nautical horror, so taking place aboard a ship certainly catches my attention. And I'm pretty well fascinated by any horror story featuring the Knights Templar, so doubly intrigued. We then have House of the Living Dead, and the description says, on a South African plantation, a maniac is on the loose, first killing the estate's animals, then starting on the human members. Okay. We then have King of the Zombies, and the description of that one says, when an American admiral goes missing in the Caribbean, special agents are dispatched to rescue him. But the two suddenly find themselves on an island surrounded by voodoo-practicing zombies. So it seems we're returning to zombie roots with some voodoo lore in that case. We then have The Last Man on Earth. The description there says, Vincent Price plays the sole survivor of a lethal virus that transforms all other humans into vampire-like zombies. He fights them nightly until, desperately lonely and at the end of his rope, he makes a startling discovery. And if that last one sounds familiar, it's because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that that was based on the novel I Am Legend, upon which the more famous recent film starring Will Smith was also based. I have some thoughts about Will Smith these days, but that's neither here nor there. That was a decent movie, but read the novel for sure. It's better than any of the film adaptations. But we still have more zombie movies to get through. Carrying on, we have a film called Mutant, the description of which says, a nearby chemical plant has been dumping toxic waste just outside town, turning the townspeople into mutant zombies. Now there's nowhere to run as the growing army of bloodthirsty ghouls take over the town. Next, we, of course, must have Night of the Living Dead, and in fact, we do. That one always seems to end up on these multi-packs or collections because, for a variety of legal reasons, it slipped early into the public domain, so it's an easy one for people to include. But in this case, it really does fit because it's kind of the quintessential zombie movie, certainly the one that established zombies as we know them today, so it makes a lot of sense to have that one. I think we all know Night of the Living Dead, but just in the interest of completion, I'll read the little description here. The description says, brother and sister Johnny and Barbara visit their father's grave in small-town Pennsylvania, where a reanimated zombie kills Johnny. Barbara escapes to a remote farmhouse where a cross-section of the local citizenry is hiding out. Not the most descriptive, but fair enough. That kind of sets the stage. We then have a film called Oasis of the Zombies, the description of which says, during World War II, a platoon of German soldiers are attacked by Allied forces. 50 years later, the son of the only surviving Allied attacker goes on a historic adventure, only to discover horrifying Nazi zombies. We did need to have at least one Nazi zombie movie on a zombie collection, so tick that box. We've got some Nazi zombies. The next one is a film entitled The Snake People. And the description says, the inhabitants of a small remote island have been practicing voodoo for years, but life on the island is starting to change when blue-faced snake-like zombies are beginning to feast on the villagers. Then we have Teenage Zombies, and the description there says, a group of teenagers become stranded upon an island through the manipulations of a foreign scientist conducting experiments on the remote isle. And finally, we have, again, unsurprisingly, White Zombie. And the description there, again, in case you don't know, says, Heron and Madeline decide to get married at Charles' lush plantation. However, when Charles becomes smitten with Madeline and enters into an unholy alliance with Zombie Master Legendra to win possession of her alive or undead. I question the grammar of that sentence, but it's a fair description of the film. So, yeah, there we go. We have some classics, some films that I've seen. Older movies, all of these, but there are some definite winners in here. White Zombie is a very important classic film. Night of the Living Dead, of course, is a classic. Some of these others as well. You really can't go wrong with some of these classic zombie movies. So, I haven't seen all of them. I have seen some of them. Looking forward to the rest. And I always like getting these collections in the horror packs because there's a lot of value for one offering. One of the 4 DVDs to come out of the package has 12 movies on it, so you're going to like at least something. You're going to be introduced to something you may not have seen before. You really can't go wrong with something like this. Next up, we have a film entitled Clownado. I almost don't need to read the description of this one. I think we know exactly what this is, just from the title. But it's not one that I've seen. It's not one that I know much about. The description here says it's about to get twisted, which seems appropriate. Let me go ahead and read the description anyway, because I just gotta know what they have to say about a film called Clownado. The back of the DVD says, there's no shelter from this storm. A troupe of murderous circus clowns are trapped in a tornado by a witch's spell and travel the Midwest, destroying everything and everyone in their path while seeking revenge on the woman who imprisoned them. So we've got clowns, tornadoes, and witches. You know we're going to be in for a good time with something like that. I feel like Sharknado really sort of rolled out the red carpet or opened the floodgates for these kinds of cheesy tornado horror movies. But I ain't complaining, because I liked Sharknado and I've liked a lot of these other ones. And I certainly do always like a good scary clown movie, so Clownado certainly has caught my attention. I'm looking forward to watching this one. And finally, from the DVD pack, we have a film entitled Bone Hill Road. It looks to be a werewolf movie based on the cover. The tagline says, "Hunger shows no mercy." We have an unrated director's cut, which always bodes well. I think we're sort of coming out of the days in which movies were excessively censored for a variety of reasons, but that does still go on to a certain extent, so the unrated director's cuts are frequently the best way to watch movies. This is not one that I was familiar with before opening up the package, but let's go ahead and read the description and see what it says. It says, stranded but not alone. Emily and Eden Stevens escape a violent domestic abuse situation only to enter into another, more dangerous one. Terrified and alone, they are stranded in the woods. Not a good place to be most of the time, particularly if you're a character in a horror movie. Let's see, stranded in the woods, hunted by a werewolf. It is indeed a werewolf movie. Carrying on, it says, when they find shelter in a nearby home, things only get worse when they stumble upon a psychotic killer and his hostages. They must all work together to get out alive as a family of werewolves and the deranged serial killer close in for the kill. That's not quite the direction I expected this to go. I was expecting just a werewolf movie, but the fact that we have two sorts of monsters, one human and one supernatural, while there have been some films that have done that, pitted human villains against supernatural villains against the innocent victims and just sort of let the chaos happen, that's been done a few times, often to great effect. I've never quite seen this particular setup before, and it sounds like a pretty good setup. Certainly sounds like these characters are in for a really bad day, but that tends to make for a good horror movie, unfortunately for the characters. So looking forward to watching this one as well. I do think we seem to be seeing more werewolf stories. You know, the horror genre goes in cycles, and it's been a while since we've had a lot of werewolf movies, but I'm all for it. I like a good werewolf movie, and there was a time a couple of years ago when we were sort of overrun by zombies, and before that we were sort of overrun by vampires. And I'm not saying we're overrun by werewolves now, but I do see werewolves perhaps on something of an ascendancy, and, well, as I said, the horror genre goes through cycles, and that seems to be where the cycle is landing at the moment. But in any case, looking forward to this particular werewolf movie. And that brings us, of course, to the Blu-ray HorrorPack for September of 2023. And I'm excited to dig in and see what we've got among the Blu-rays. The first to come out is, of course, my book, Case Files of the Rocky Mountain Paranormal Research Society, Volume 1. Okay, yes, I kid. This did not come in the HorrorPack. I snuck it in there while you weren't looking, but you should buy a copy. It's good. And even though it is Rocky Mountain Paranormal, and it sort of has a Colorado focus, there are some out-of-state stories in here, and even if you're from out of state, I think the stories are pretty good. I think it's interesting. I think if you like listening to me prattle on this channel, you're gonna like this book, so get yourself a copy. It's available direct from my publishing house at polymathpress.com, or Amazon, or Barnes & Noble, or wherever fine books are sold. But commercial message out of the way, let's actually dig into the September 2023 Blu-ray HorrorPack. And the first to come out of the Blu-ray pack is Zombieland. I think a lot of us already know this movie. I had a feeling this might have been one of the ones because HorrorPack frequently posts little hints or teasers. They don't tell you what's coming, but they post little things on their social media, little hints, and one of them had to do with Twinkies, and if you've seen Zombieland, you know that Twinkies play a fairly substantial role in this movie. In fact, the only two movies I can think of off the top of my head that fit sort of within the horror genre to feature Twinkies are Zombieland and Ghostbusters. Although Zombieland features Twinkies more, Ghostbusters just has that one particularly memorable line. Anyway, Zombieland, great horror comedy, zombie comedy. I think most of you know it. I have certainly seen it. This is one that I'm very familiar with, but in case you don't, I'll go ahead and read the description for you. The description says, nerdy college student Columbus has survived the plague that has turned mankind into flesh-devouring zombies because he's scared of just about everything. Gun-toting, Twinkie-loving Tallahassee has no fears. Together, they are about to stare down their most horrifying challenge yet, each other's company. Emma Stone and Abigail Breslin co-star in this double-hitting, head-smashing comedy. A fair description. I think the zeitgeist being what it is, or at least was a couple of months ago, the ad copy might also point out that this movie features a wonderful moment in which Amber Heard gets smashed over the head with the porcelain lid of a toilet, and that is one of the finest moments in any movie that I've ever seen. But that's neither here nor there. The movie itself is actually really good. It's funny. It's a good one. One that I have seen, but always happy to rewatch. Zombieland. Next up, we have a film entitled Detention. So presumably this is some sort of school-based horror film. It's not one that I'm familiar with. Let's read the back and see what we're in for. It says, Josh Hutcherson, Dane Cook, and Spencer Locke star in Detention. Dane Cook has never been my favorite, but I'm not going to hold that against the film. Let's see. Star in Detention. A hipster teen horror comedy where the local students of Grizzly Lake must survive their final year of high school. Standing in their way is Cinderella, a slasher movie killer who has seemingly come to life and is preying on the school's student body. As the clock ticks and the bodies pile up, the likely suspects are embroiled in a race against time to stop Cinderella and ultimately save the world. If only they can get out of detention. I'm going to admit this is probably not one that I would ordinarily pick up on my own. I feel like the sort of teen comedy has largely played itself out in my mind. There are some good ones even still, but in general I feel like it's been done. But combining it with a slasher plot introduces some fresh ideas into it. And you know, it sounds like it could be a lot of fun. I'm not necessarily expecting fine cinema, but if it's got some laughs, some creative kills, if it can keep me entertained for a couple of hours, that's really all we ask for with a film like this, and it seems like it may very well be able to deliver on those promises. So, looking forward to trying Detention as well. Next, third from the Blu-ray pack, we have a film entitled Fantasy Island from Blumhouse. The description on the back of this one says, "In Blumhouse's Fantasy Island, the enigmatic Mr. Rourke makes the secret dreams of his lucky guests come true at a luxurious but remote tropical resort. But when the fantasies turn into nightmares, the guests have to solve the island's mystery in order to escape with their lives." And then it lists off a bunch of the stars of the film. This is one that, it sort of flew under my radar a little bit. I have heard of it, but I haven't seen it. I recall seeing a bunch of trailers for it. You know, when I went to the cinema, I saw the trailers, I saw some ads on television or on YouTube or something, and it looked intriguing. And then it just sort of fell off of my radar, and I forgot about it for a while, and then didn't really hear anything good or bad. So I don't really know what to expect, but I do recall that when I first saw the trailer, it was one that I wanted to see, and Blumhouse very frequently does some good things, so I'm pretty excited to try this Fantasy Island as well. And last, every month with the Blu-ray pack, there is a HorrorPack exclusive Blu-ray, and that must be what this last one is. If I look at the spine, I can see this is exclusive number 87. As I've pointed out before, we are creeping up on triple digits here. They've been at it for a while, and I've been subscribed for quite a while too. They have been sending me good stuff for a while. Anyway, this is a film entitled The Witching Season. And the little tagline here says it's Halloween Tales of Terror. I'm all kinds of excited about this one for several reasons. First, the HorrorPack exclusives tend not to be films that I'm familiar with, as in fact this is not a film that I'm familiar with. I hadn't heard of it until just a moment ago. But the HorrorPack exclusives do tend to be good to great, so that bodes well for this one just on account of what it is. The people selecting the exclusives seem to do a good job. Second, it says it's Tales of Terror, which means this is an anthology film, or at least a collection of short stories. And I always love those because even if one of the stories doesn't work for you, very frequently another one does. And it gives you an opportunity to sample some different styles or some different filmmakers or even just some different stories in little bite-sized nuggets. And finally, it's a Halloween movie, and we are creeping up on the Halloween season. And as much as I watch a ton of horror, and I read a ton of horror, and I'm always on the lookout for Halloween-specific ones, in many ways I feel like I've exhausted a lot of the Halloween-specific books and movies that I've been able to find. There are some others out there. I always find a few new ones every year, but I've sort of gone through a lot of them, and I'm always looking for more than I seem to be able to find. So finding a new Halloween-specific movie just in time for the Halloween season is certainly a treat. Anywho, let's read the description on the back and see what this one is all about. It says, Witching Season Films presents The Witching Season, a spine-tingling anthology of horror and suspense compiled together on this high-definition Blu-ray collection. Created by a group of like-minded friends who share a love of all things Halloween, this 5-episode series delivers original tales of terror that capture the spirit of the Halloween season. So it sounds pretty low budget. It sounds like some people, probably people a lot like me, who just want more Halloween movies and love the Halloween season, put this together. But I'll tell you what, low budget or not, even if it was just some guys making a movie, very frequently those end up having a lot of heart and being some of my favorite films. It then goes on to describe some details of the specific stories. The first one is called Killer on the Loose. It says, an escaped killer lurks in the shadows of an isolated home on Halloween night. We then have Princess, which says, in search of a new beginning, Kendra and her daughter Jamie move into a quiet home in the suburbs. But something evil lurks in the basement, and it isn't looking for roommates. We then have Not Alone. And the description says, upon waking from a horrific nightmare, Kyle struggles to bridge the gap between his dreams and reality. And then there's They Live Inside Us, the description of which says, a writer spends the night in a notoriously haunted house in hopes of finding inspiration for his latest project. He soon realizes that he is living his own horror story. I've done that a few times myself, but have never actually witnessed the evil manifest and threaten my life. Alas. And then finally we have Is That You? And the description there says, confined to her bedroom on Halloween night, Whitney notices an eerie figure lurking outside her home. So, intriguing sounding stories. The descriptions don't give away too much, but just enough to sort of whet the appetite. But honestly, even just the cover art and knowing that this is a Halloween anthology film that is a HorrorPack exclusive, I'm pretty sure I'm going to love this already. So another winner as far as I'm concerned with the witching season. And so there we have it. HorrorPack continues to do a wonderful job of delivering lots of treats every month. We've got 8 brand new movies, or actually a lot more than 8 because of that multi-pack, and then one of which I've already seen, but mostly new movies to me. So I'm excited to dig in and start watching all of those. And of course, as I mentioned before, do stay tuned for my upcoming video in which I actually review the previous 6 months of HorrorPack offerings. This set will be in the next installment, but the previous 6 months I'm working on reviewing now, and that video will be posted soon. Of course, also, as I mentioned, don't forget to buy my book, whether from Amazon or direct from the publisher or wherever you might want to get books. Do subscribe, ring that notification bell, do all those YouTube-y things. But most importantly of all, or at least second most important to buying my book, as always, take care and stay scared.